Hi, everybody. How's it going? Wow, has been such a long time coming and is so exciting on so many different levels to me, and so authentic in so many ways. And in preparing, you try to imagine who your audience is and who you all are and what's bringing us all together. And I'm really struck by the similarities in our programs, but how we all adapt and morph and accommodate our own communities to make these things, to make books in the home a reality. And I'm just sort of like overwhelmed by it all. So I hope that my presentation will be clear enough to everybody. The other thing is, I'm not really presenting specifically about Bookspring. I am presenting one thing that we did at Bookspring, but I do want to share with everybody that, Bookspring is almost a 50-year-old book distribution organization. I've only been along this journey in the last 6 years. So the things that Unite for Literacy was saying, that this is a long-term game. This is a chronic, ongoing problem that we're addressing through the steady stream of books and this flow of knowledge. And I feel like I'm just dipping my foot in the stream. And I have one little thing to contribute, but it doesn't really represent all of what Bookspring does. So I do hope that you will look at our website, look at our resources. We have Parent Book Club resources. We have an amazing staff. Program Director Shannon Thorne is awesome and would be able to talk to you about some of the great, really detailed questions that people are sharing about how do we do this or that. We're definitely open to doing all that. But let me talk about my thing that I'm really working on, that I'm trying to solve, the big, hairy, audacious issue, which is digital books. Okay, so this presentation is exploring the paths to digital book distribution. And this is kind of the culmination of a lot of things we've been working on at Bookspring that were really precipitated by COVID and accelerated by COVID. So the big question for us as an organization that had grown out of a local affiliate of Reading is Fundamental and a local affiliate of Reach Out and Read, which merged together 10 years ago in 2008, well, I guess it's been 12 years ago, to become Bookspring, was really a print culture. It was a culture of print books and print distribution and everything that we've all been talking about that magic when the child gets the book, and really focused on early literacy. So even though we're birth to 12, like birth to 6 to 8 was really our sweet spot. There were members of our organization who felt that digital books were not books, that should not be used. Pediatrics and the American Association of Pediatrics said no print, no screen time below 2. But all this other research was saying they're using screens, everybody's using screens. So they kind of started to back down on it and say, well, if digital devices can be used as a means for parents to read together with their kids, for grandmas to read on FaceTime, that would be okay. So we started, and research started to say, maybe this print versus digital divide is not as firm as digital bad, print good. Maybe there's more continuum along that cycle. So we have slowly got to the point where people are willing for us to explore this, although we don't really know what it's supposed to look like and how to make it really good and high quality. So one big question is digital reading fundamentally different than print reading? And the person who I look to for this in the research world is named Marianne Wolf. And she's got a wonderful theory that really says, maybe, reading is a learned activity. It's something that we do socially. You have to be taught to read. Maybe digital reading does different things to the brain than print reading, but maybe they're both important. That's really summarizing her stuff in a nutshell. Go read the book. I'm going to have lots of links at the end so you can go find this stuff. But I love that idea that I think they're complementary, but they might fundamentally be slightly different skills. And to be fair to our children, we should give them the tools for both, particularly low-income children, because they're going to need them as much as everybody else. And that's going to be part of the way to equity, right? So what are some of the advantages and disadvantages about digital books? Well, one thing is digital books can be copied. They're easy to distribute. They can be, there's advantages to it. There's advantages to kids with disabilities. They can be adapted. The print can be bigger. They can be multilingual. They can be translated faster. They can be cheaper to produce than print books. Some people could say they'd be better for the environment. It depends on how it's distributed. And then there's disadvantages too. There's distractions, there's pop-ups, there's ads, there's access, there's losability. All these things are some of the disadvantages that digital books might have. So in thinking about this whole issue, I came up with 5 different Ds to consider. So these 5 Ds are ways that if you haven't thought really deeply about this in the past, are just some buckets that I thought we could go through fairly quickly and just help you frame your own thinking about digital books. And these 5 Ds are device. How are the digital books getting to the kids on tablet, on phone? We'll go through these in more detail. But what is a digital book? Is it an e-reader? All those sorts of things. Design. What is the format of the digital book? Is it an ebook? Is it an app? There's all kinds of technical things. And I do have a technological background. I was a project manager for large scale, massively open courses with Harvard and MIT that were international, that had hundreds of thousands of people using them. So I do get a little technical, but bear with me. Hopefully I can make it understandable. Demographics. Who has access to digital things? There's a lot of kind of residual, people who are low income don't have access to the internet. Actually, the most recent research is saying, yes, they have smartphones, and that is how they use the internet. And it's really important that they have that access. And it's great that part of the new funding that's coming down from the federal government is really helping rural communities get that. I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but data. When I say data, I'm saying the books themselves, the content themselves, the story, the writing, the visuals, the graphics. I really mean content. Sometimes we say text, sometimes we say content. I'm technological enough that I say data. What are the pieces that are going into that digital book? And then finally, desire. Do kids want to read digital books? Do parents want digital books? Do teachers want digital books? That's a whole other ball of wax, and it's probably going to vary a lot per community. So let's dig into these just a little bit more. Device. So what devices do children and families use to access digital content? Phones. And I'm going to bring my phone up for you. It's a little tiny SE iPhone. Okay, it's really old, but this is something that most families have. If you go to the supermarket, you see parents giving kids phones, and they're there. Tablets, I'm talking about iPads, or there's some other brands, there's some Android tablets. They kind of had a big bump at the beginning of the last decade, but they kind of tailored off a little bit. And part of that is because of Chromebooks, which are kind of really lightweight laptops. E-readers are still very ubiquitous. Kindles, Nooks, Kobos. They also make these sorts of devices for kids. Leapfrogs, a Fire Kids, which is a really kind of kid-friendly, small screen-friendly e-reading device that, it's kind of expensive, a couple $100, and that's out of the reach for a lot of low-income families. Laptops, desktops, televisions. I think that as we're talking about digital reading, the kind of reading that we get from YouTube and screens and chat rooms and things that are all kind of converging in this Internet of Things that's happening around us. Another thing to think about devices are the prices, the durability, the screen time, and the battery life. If I was working with a program that gave out a whole bunch of tablets, but the battery life was bad. They only bought a year worth of internet access for them. And so at the end of the year, everything was gone. So it is hard to manage these programs and hard to do them equitably. Most devices at this point, the rule of thumb in the tech world is they're not going to last more than 4 years. So what I'm trying to get you to do is imagine books as a cross-device cultural expression. Books are not just a print thing. They can also be digital. And of course, the publishing world has been doing this, and we'll talk about some of those things that are available digitally through the commercial publishing world. But if we can really think of books not just as the print object, but as a fully formed expression of an idea, be it fiction or nonfiction, that's kind of what keeps me excited about this work. Okay, the next thing should be the design. So as we talk about ebooks, are you talking about something that's locked down in a certain format that only works on a Kindle and that's hard to share? There's book apps. There was this great influx of interactive book apps in the last decade that were really amazing and had all these bells and whistles, but they were hard to support. And as tech kept moving forward, most of them are broken. Websites, I really go back to websites because everybody, if you've got a browser, I believe in the open internet, and I think that it is a way of sharing knowledge. And so I do default to websites a lot. And PDFs, which for a while were not so great with mobile phones, but now almost all mobile phones can read a PDF. So that's, we'll go into some of the choices that we made at Bookspring. Just here's some other things that are the elements of a book, right? The letters, the words, the paragraphs, the pages, the documents, the files as you get in digital land. One of the things about ebooks that it can be adaptive is the text highlighting. The research really shows that text highlighting is good for kids, can help them recognize the word. It helps with word and letter recognition, can be auto or manual. Still graphic images, beauty. Like, one of the things about children's books to me that I love is that I think about them as works of art. And so the relationship of the graphic images to the text, the fonts, all that sort of stuff makes up that experience of engaging yourself in the story. Digital books have the potential to do audios and voices and musics and sound effects, although I think the research is a little bit not supportive that those things are good for an immersive reading experience to create sustained reading and comprehension. But it's great to be able to have additional languages in a flip of a button, which so many things like Unite for Literacy does really, really well. And we really like to promote those books with people. And another one called Storyweaver, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later, that we really like out of India. So adaptive features for people with disabilities is really something that I think is the most advanced use of ebooks. And I've got a resource for that too, for those of you that are interested in working with populations like that. I think one of the biggest differences about the internet versus a book, like having a screen, a book, is the difference of scrolling through the content or flipping the page, right? They're very different kinesthetic experiences. Also, books sort of are linear in that they go from beginning to end, and the internet is sort of decentralized. It's more like you're flipping through things and finding things. It's more like a journey. And I think that part of what we're trying to do when we create readers is create people who can sustain a through line of meaning through a story. So that's something that I'm interested in continuing to be able to do even in digital books. So demographics, as I mentioned, families have smartphones. So that is a way we can get them to them. We can get information to them if they can find it, right? And there is more investment in broadband. And because of COVID, I know in Austin, the schools gave out devices to everybody. We were very adaptive, and we did curbside distribution of books as they were giving out their tablets and stuff like that. Ironically, they apparently took them back this recently, and now we're in stage 5 in Austin, and it's bad here. So we don't really know what's going to happen next, but that's a whole other story. The schools and the libraries did free Wi-Fi access points, so you could go to near the school and sit there and have Wi-Fi access, and they eventually gave out hotspots here. But we all know that the disparities in race and ethnicity persist in devices and in the quality of the internet access. Pew Charitable Trust, I read every report that they come out, and it's still bad. There's still inequity. We've all got to keep working on it and keeping that in mind. And it was so great to hear those presenters this morning, and having from the community the voice as we move forward about how people want to be able to access things from their own communities of color. You know, free logins and registrations can be hindered by lack of parental email access. So for instance, our school district, or one of our major school districts, the main one we serve, does provide some free library ebook access. There's wonderful things, but families, if they don't have an email address, or they're not comfortable with using their email address, they're not going to be able to get even a free login. So that's something else that informed what we decided to do at Bookspring. And for all income levels, this risk that the internet is fleeting. It's elusive, it's temporary. Things can come and disappear. And one of the things we love about books are their permanence. So to me, the more that we can make digital books available in multiple ways so that they don't disappear, through archives, through different, because they can be duplicated, the more that we're going to be preserving culture in the long run. Okay, data. So where are these digital books coming from? Trade and retail publishers. There have been a lot of advancements in ebooks. You can go to Amazon and you can, if you sign up, there's 99-cent ebooks there. They're a little hard to share with people if you're distributing them, although Amazon recently said you can buy a set of codes and distribute them, but then the user has to have an Amazon account and a credit card and a blah, 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 just to get in. So, you know, but there's really some beautiful work being done in trade and retail publishers. Library subscription services, like I said, Overdrive. I think that's really great if you can get into a library district that you have access to them, but not everybody has that. Online library archives. There's been a big movement at the federal level to fund really high quality digital archives of important things. So you can find things like the Children's Literature Archive of books that are in the public domain, the Library of Congress. They're beautiful old books, things like The Secret Garden is actually a public domain book now, as is some of the Oz books. But look at how much culture has changed since then. Some of them are absolutely not appropriate and not things that I would share in their existing form. But because they're in the public domain, they are adaptable. So that's a whole other thing to discuss. Some private companies are doing books online just because they want to. And I have some examples of those. We have those on Bookspring's website too. We refer people to them. But now I'm going to talk about all those things have some kind of restriction to them, like a login or a sign-in, stuff like that. Now, open educational resources is a movement that is putting things on the web, open access, as little restriction as possible so that we're freely sharing knowledge. And that's a movement that I've been involved in with foreign language education, with less commonly taught languages at the college level. But I do think they're really important for K through 12 and even for early childhood learning. Creative Commons is a way of licensing your material to the world, if you're a creator, that is saying you are free to take this and use this and share this and print this if you give me credit. There's some other restrictions to it, but that publishing under Creative Commons license instead of a traditional copyright license is a way that we could create a more open society for creative expression. That's really putting that in a nutshell. There's a whole lot more we could go into that. Government-sponsored content, sometimes different agencies of the US government will publish some things. Like there was some good COVID material that was out there that were little books for kids, or the Forest Park about forest fires or nature. Those things can be out there that are free. And individuals and nonprofits. Bookspring's doing it, and as the Raising a Reader presentation said, there's so much stuff out there, but you do have to kind of pay attention to the quality of it. That's the downfall of open educational resources, is that it's not always that great quality. I'm checking my time, Molly. Okay, so desire. What do families want? I think a lot of parents and a lot of us in this world are like nostalgic about the print book, and we really love print books. And I certainly am never saying that we should stop that, right? But there was one study that I've got in the end here, and my experience is that kids like the device. They like digital books. So if we're listening to the kids, there are kids who really like their devices. So if we're going where the kids are, that might be a place. Again, like I said, using the book together, the research is saying that it can be as effective as a book if it's used together to read out loud together, or independently if they're older. There's another thing that we've all been talking about, which is sharing with the social aspect of it. And one of the things that we've been doing at Bookspring, and I think is fun about digital books, is they are shareable. You can do reviews. We've been collecting YouTube videos and reposting them and doing lots of social media. And I think that makes it fun and accessible to people, particularly during COVID lockdown. Like I said, we would not have gone this far with it if it wasn't for COVID, I'm sure. And you can save some of these things on your own device, right? The drawback of open education things is that you can't do the cool tracking levels and time read and the kind of instructional academic things for assessment and intervention that some tools can do if you log in. So with all that in mind, Bookspring really, we just felt like we had to do something, and we collectively as a team came up with this crazy thing. And as of Sunday night at 6 o'clock, we produced our 50-second BB's Weekly theme. And what BB's Weekly themes is, it's hundreds of collected open access books in Spanish and English. Each lesson has an introductory animated video followed up and follow-up activities all in one web page, one for 3 to 5 year olds and one for 6 to 8 years old. The books are PDF books, so they're downloadable, but they're also readable in most browsers, and so you can keep them, you can go back to the website and reference them. They're arranged in thematic lessons related to early childhood content from kits that Bookspring had developed over the last 15 or 20 years mostly, and some other content, early childhood content. They're free and open for families and caregivers to access, promoted in social media all the time. We do have training content on demand for parents, caregivers, and childcare providers, and we're finding that the adoption from childcare providers, from people who run daycare centers and who want extra access to stuff, has been much higher than we expected. Our audience was parents, but childcare providers are picking it up too. So we get approximately 8,000 visitors a month and about 2,000 downloads since August of 2020 when we started. We submitted and it was accepted to the Open Educational Resources Digital Archive. So that makes it pluggable with people's Canvas or Blackboard or other kind of instructional tools that they might have for kindergarten, first, second grades. And we did a focus group with families, really a deep dive into the material. We learned a lot of things that we probably need to continue to develop and fix about it, because this was all done on a shoestring. We had no grant for it. It was all done with work studies and skin of our teeth. And, we just bootstrapped it basically. But one of the parents said, yeah, my kid comes home from preschool, I hear what they're talking about, I go to the website, I find some more books, we read them together, and then she says, more Blue Butterfly books, please. And this is a Spanish speaking mom, so everything's in Spanish. It toggles into Spanish. I loved that qualitative feedback was so important to keep us going. This is just a little screenshot of what it kind of looks like. I'm not going to actually go to the website now. I would love for you to go there on your own and look at it. Summary, it's PDF books, they're YouTube videos that are embedded into the page. It's optimized for mobile phones. So one of the things I wanted to see if I can, maybe I'll wait to this because it'll be too small. It doesn't require a login, and there's no charges or advertisements except for the end of the YouTube video, which we haven't been able to figure out how to turn off yet. So hopefully we have time for discussion, Molly, right? I'm interested, do you distribute digital books? How does it work? What do your beneficiaries think of them? If you don't, what would you need to be able to do so? And what concerns or questions do you have about distributing digital books for children? Here's some of the resources that are in the PDF that I'm going to give you, or the PowerPoint that I'm going to give you. Storyweaver, Prath and Books is where we got most of our books. We also contributed 200 translations of Spanish so that we could get more Spanish books for us here in Texas. Bookdash is another really wonderful Creative Commons source. Unite for Literacy. Fable College is so beautiful. It's multiple languages. There's only a few of them, and it's a private company that's just doing it. But they're open on the web. You can't download them. They're beautiful. Epic is the trade book subscription like Netflix. If you don't know about it, it's fairly cheap. School districts can buy it. Teachers can use it for free. You know, it's got a little tracker. It'll tell you how your kid's reading in it, but it is definitely login and restricted. And Learning Ally, if you don't know about it and you work with kids with disabilities, they're free audiobooks, all sorts of things. It's very well established. It's learningally.org. You do have to be qualified IEP to access those for free. Bunch of research things. Susan Newman was so exciting to see her and hear her talk. And her recent research is really starting to open the door about screens, apps, and digital books, and was so helpful to look at now. So that is me. I'm going to stop sharing.
Well, Emily, you just knocked it out of the park. I think you've made many of us consider ourselves sort of the traditionalists. We want to snuggle up with the kids sitting in our lap and flip through the picture book. Think through our own thought process about digital text. I am anticipating that we are about to see a whole new slew of research around digital text, just because of so many of us being forced with digital text during COVID. So thank you so much. I know I'm going to get a million requests for how people can access your resources in your PowerPoint. So I will bug you about them and follow up with you and then get them to the larger audience. So thank you so much.